I will do it in English, if you don't mind. Being the first one to talk in the afternoon is quite a big impact. And that's how I have called this lecture. I'm going to speak about impacts, because I think that too often we need strong impacts to focus to the real important things in life, to focus on the research of our real purpose. Well, first, I have to say thank you to the organizers to invite me, to let me share my thoughts with you. And also, before starting, I have to say that I will give this lecture in English, not because my English is good enough. I give this lecture in English, first of all, because Xavi Menduenya asked me to do. And I don't know why, but I always go to the difficult things, you know. I didn't think that there was another way to do. But also, because I am a little bit, let's see, adventurer. If I think on this profile of my life, I would never do this in English. But if I think that I am an adventurer, I think that I like challenges, and I like assuming risks. So why not do in English? I'm sorry for you, but I will do. So for more than 20 years, I have done a lot of adventures. They have told some of them. The most recent one has been an expedition, absolutely unsupported, for crossing Antarctica from the coast to the South Pole. I have also done Everest and the 7 summits, the highest summits of each continent, a lot of ultramarathons and blah, blah, blah. Quite tiring, you know. But that's why I like very much this sentence that says that I will believe what you say when I see what you do. And I like very much speaking from the learnings of my adventures or my intense experiences. Because I think that the really extreme situations, the critical moments in our life, they give us a lot of thoughts, a lot of learnings about attitudes and human behavior. Today, I will speak to you going around 3 histories. 3 histories that have been connected in my life, and I'm very proud about them because I could live them in a first person. The first one, well, it doesn't work. No, yes, sorry. The first one is about Pepo Busquets. He's a friend of my village. He was a promising motorcycle pilot when he was young. And when he was 17 years old, he got a contract of the leading brand of motorcycles at that moment in this specialty as a factory rider. But he did only 6 races, because after that, when 2 weeks after being 18 years old, he had a car accident, a stupid car accident. He even didn't drive. He didn't drive at all. And he was sitting in a wheelchair during the rest of his life. All his dreams were gone. All his passion was finished. But after sometimes when he was recovered in his emotions, he didn't want to forget his passion, his real important things. What was that? The motor races, I can say. So he changed the motorbike for the car. You know, he went back to the races with the car in that time, with off-road races. But he was not only a disabled man who ride a car. He was a Spanish champion 2 times on his category with normal pilots. He was a really great pilot, Pepo Busquets. We were friends from when we were childs, and we had a dream together. We wanted to go to Dakar. When he had the accident, he said, Albert, we'll never go to the Dakar rally. I say, why not? You are a pilot again. We can go, and we will go together. I said, are you sure? Let's work. Let's work for that. When I had done already 2 Dakars with motorbike, I organized a team, I found a sponsor, and we went together to the Dakar. 1st of January 2000, of the year 2000, we were together in the starting line of the Dakar Rally. Sorry, I never. On the VBAC, I was his personal assistant. I helped him in all the things. And in the track, I was his co-pilot in the car. And we finished. We finished the Dakar Rally, and he was the first ever pilot, disabled pilot, in the history of the Dakar Rally who finished the toughest race in the world, the toughest motor race in the world, just driving with his hands. Pepo Busquets is a successful person, and he became stronger and more connected to the priorities of his life after a huge impact. Next history is about Nelson Cardona, a Colombian with an origin of a very poor family in Colombia. He escaped home when he was 15. He went to the jungle. He escaped from the mass of his situation. And he came back. They thought that he was dead in the jungle. And he came back when he was 20, after a lot of problems with some dangerous jobs and some relations with drugs also. Then he became a ranger of a national park in Colombia. And there he met a group of climbers, very good climbers of Colombia. They were training in the park. He was starting to help him because he was running and climbing so well also. And they were so happy with him that they invited him to become a member of an expedition to an 8,000 meters peak in the Himalaya. He did so well that he began to climb as a professional climber, and he was well known in Colombia. But in 2006, preparing the expedition to Mount Everest, he had a big accident climbing near his house, and he had his leg really injured, his pelvis and his mouth. He was 10 months, in the hospital. Of course, his friends, they went to Himalaya to climb Everest, and he was there. The doctors say he would not save his life, but he's a fighter, you know. He's a fighter. And he saved his life after 10 months with a lot of operations, suffering a lot. And he told me that he was hating everybody sometimes. He thought that life was not fair with him. And he just was nearly in a depression. But how did he go out of that? He connected with his dream, and his dream was going to Everest. And I say from the hospital, from that bed, he said, I will go to Everest sometimes. Sure, I will do. It's my will. And that gave him the strength to fight. After 10 months, he went out of the hospital with the leg very delicate, and he started the recuperation. But he had a problem. He had an infection. And he had to come back to hospital. They had to operate him again, and they had to fix the tibia and the heel. They had to fix it. So he saved his leg, but the leg was not useful anymore for anything, at least for doing a sport. He was again desperate. He couldn't do again his will. But then, when he was in a very bad situation, he saw in the television Oscar Pistorius. You know who is Oscar Pistorius. He was in London running the 400 meters with two prosthetic legs. He saw Oscar Pistorius, and he called him. He contacted him. He said, Oscar, I want to be an athlete again. He said, hey, Nelson, there is a huge and obvious difference between you and me. I have no legs, and you have both legs. But Nelson knew what was the purpose of his life, and he thought that was a thing to solve. After a big discussion with lawyers in Colombia and with the doctors, he decided to cut his leg to become again a climber, an alpinist. I met Nelson in the base camp of Himalaya. After training a lot, after cutting his leg, he was training, he was climbing a lot, and we met in the base camp of Himalaya climbing together. He had so many energy that I didn't want to go out of his sight. I was 1 month and a half with him all the time. And May 17, 2010, after fighting with the mountain during 1 month and a half, I hugged Nelson in the top of the world. It was one of the most incredible moments of my life. Nelson also is a successful person, a stronger person after a huge impact. Last history is about Camila Vargas. Camila Vargas has a pulmonary fibrosis, and all his life has been struggling between death and life. And in his country was going to die, but one teacher fundraised some money and sent her to Spain, to Vall-d'Hebron, and they made a transplant of the two lungs. But it didn't work very well. I met her 1 year after. She had only 20% of his lung capacity. And I went to the hospital because the foundation asked me to go just to make her smile or something, because I was going to climb Everest at that time. But Camila, when I met her in the hospital, she had a lot of energy. And she told me in the hospital, I had to wear that for the infections. She said, I want to be a singer, and I want to be a compositor. I was astonished. How could she tell me that if she had only 20% of capacity in his lungs? But I was so impressed that I made her a challenge. I said, Camila, I'm going to climb Everest. I'm going to suffer there. I'm going to take risks, and I'm going to push me to the limit in order to reach the top of the world. If I reach the top of Everest, I will dedicate it to you. I will devote the mountain to you, but with one condition. When I come back, I want to see you at home, because the doctors told me that probably when I come back, I would not see her alive. And she said to me, but that's easy, Albert. I also want to make a challenge to you. Of course I will be at home when you come back. But I made the challenge that if you reach the summit of Everest, but only if you reach the top, I will devote you my song. Okay, so I went to the mountain, I took pictures from her, I made pictures, and I sent to her as soon as often as I could. And that's the summit of Everest. It was a little bit foggy upstairs. And when I come back, she was already at home, of course. And she was in the waiting list for a second transplant of his lung. I contacted a friend that she was a singer, and I said, go and visit her. And she told me, Albert, she has real talent for singing and for composing. And we promised her we would record his song. And on September 2011, we presented her song. It's called in Spanish, Lo Puedo Conseguir, in a theater in Barcelona. It was a big success. You know, in 2011, she got his second transplant of one lung, only one lung, they cannot do both. And now it's quite good, and we are recording a full disc with her. A full disc and a video will be very, very nice. It will be out in March. So Camila is already a singer. Again, she's stronger after a big impact. So I ask you, how many people don't you know that after a big disaster in his life, such as an accident, a cancer, the death of a loved person, they grow up a lot at a personal level, and they can go to the root of what is real important for them. This kind of people is lucky. Why? Because their big impact, the big trauma they got in life, gave them the opportunity to be brave and to avoid the contamination of a lot of unnecessary things and go straight to the priorities. The challenge, the real challenge, is for us, for the people that hasn't got any big trauma in their life, and we don't give ourselves the chance to focus on the research of the real aim, the real meaning of our life. I think that it should be as meritorious, at least, that normal people, without any disaster on his back, could change the real important things of their life, could work on his evolution as a human behavior without waiting for an external impact. But it's sad that the majority of people don't assume that they are the leaders, the only leaders of their real life. Each of us, I would say, has to be responsible of the purpose of his life. Each of us. And each of us must work without waiting an external impact in order to have an intense and interesting life. Of course, I finish. Pepo Busquets, Nelson, and Camila, they did it. They took profit of a big impact. It was their option, their choice. I think that our choice should be not waiting for an external impact and just be your own impact. Thank you.